You might be asking why I'm in a garage. I don't know. Okay, well actually, I am still kind of awkward about talking about things in front of other people. My uncle's home today, so I figured I'd come and get some privacy in the garage. But yeah, I wanted to continue on about my dad because I figure I started the subject, so I might as well just continue on with it. My dad is a really cool guy. Like, I can't lie. The first time I met him at the airport, he was wearing like skinny-ish jeans, a leather jacket, steel-toed boots. Like, he likes metal music. He's a guy that never fully grew up. He didn't ever hit that old fogey age. I mean, physically, he kind of did. He's got some old bones, but mentally, he's still a kid, and not in a bad way. And as soon as I met him, he treated me equally to the way he treats his other kids. I wasn't any different. I wasn't treated any more special than the rest of them. I mean, sure, we had our times of catching up, and those were special moments, but other than that, I'm treated exactly the same, which is exactly how I wanted it. Now, the thing about my dad is, as wonderful as he is, I don't know who he was 20 odd years ago. Like, 26 years ago when my mom and dad would have met, they were both totally different people in a completely different time in a country that was run a lot differently than what us Americans are used to. So for me to pick one side of the story and stick with it is kind of hard to do, considering all of the circumstances. Now, my family in general have come to the same conclusion that my dad was he was a typical 20-something-year-old guy. He liked to drink a little bit, he liked to listen to music and party, but he wasn't like a raver or whatever you would class as like big partiers or anything like that. Like, him and his friends and my mom and her friends were all pretty much the same. They were just 20-year-olds hanging out and having a good time. And there's a lot of different stories to what the circumstances were with my dad not being there when I was born. I was told that he didn't want anything to do with me from the time my mom was pregnant. I was told that he worked in the hospital the day I was born but didn't want to come up and see me. That was his choice. He did not want anything to do with me because he wasn't ready to be a dad. But if you were to ask him and other people I met over in Ireland, they all said the same thing. And my mom's best friend who lived with her at the time says the exact same story. Well, my mom and my friend had an apartment in downtown Derry where I was born, and this other girl and my dad and his two other buddies would always hang out at the apartment, and they were all couples, and they would always be there together. And the story is that around the time my mom was 8 months pregnant, previous to that, my dad and my mom were apparently buying all this stuff to prepare for me, cribs, car seats, diapers, clothes, all that kind of stuff. About 8 months into my mom being pregnant, apparently my grandmother shows up at the apartment and tells my mom, okay, it's time to go. And that was the last time anybody saw my family. Now, again, my grandmother was a very possessive human being, so it kind of makes sense. Apparently, my dad wanted to go to the hospital when he found out I was born, but my grandmother told him, if you show up, I'll have you arrested. Which, to me, I find that to be true. Just because I know who my grandmother was, she was very possessive, she was kind of controlling, so I can believe that story. And I can't pick a side of the story where it is, did my dad actually want to show up or did he not? Was he there through the pregnancy or was he not? I don't know. That's a part I will not know. It makes sense to me that if my dad wanted to come and see me, my grandmother said no. That makes sense. But the thing is, people grow and they change and they evolve. And I guarantee you, my mom is not the same person she used to be when she was in her 20s. My dad is not the same guy he used to be when he was in his 20s. I'm not the same person I was when I was 15 years old. Like, you grow up and you realize the world is not just a playground. And I have a feeling that's what happened. Because my dad has made other choices that have not necessarily been the greatest, but he's learned from them and grown, just as my mom has. Now, I mentioned another sibling. Here's the thing. When they told me about my family situation, they told me that there was another sibling that I might possibly have, which would have been my mom's friend's daughter. Or I didn't even know at the time. I was just told that there might be another sibling, but that she was taken away because the mother was unfit. That's the story I was told, and I didn't question it. I remember that. I did not question it. So when I found my dad, one of the first questions I asked him was like, okay, I was told there was possibly another sibling. And all he told me was that He had taken a DNA test when he was younger and was told the child was not his, and kind of just left it at that. So that was that. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting, but all right. A little while later, my dad calls me and asks me, you remember when you brought up the other kid? And instantly my heart kind of just, didn't sink, but it was like, I was nervous because I had just gotten over this whole thing of like, okay, I have found my family, I can figure out my identity, like, it's all kind of settling down. And now here's something else that I have to kind of walk through and figure out, and there's going to be a lot more confusion, and I just figured out all this confusion. Apparently, we'll call her Child M, comes into the picture and says, I'm positive you are my father. My dad makes decisions based purely on his gut, and at first I was kind of iffy about it, but he didn't take another pregnancy test. He kind of just looked at her and knew that she was in fact his daughter. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't partially upset about it, just because, like I said, I had just gotten over all of these emotions and I was just finally feeling settled down into it, and here comes something else. And I don't necessarily have to deal with, but I have to kind of walk through and figure out again. Like another thing, like, oh great, now maybe my dad was who they made him out to be. Maybe he was this really terrible person. Like, it was hard to figure out and settle down. But thankfully, you know, I took the time and we talked, the sibling and I talked, and we actually have a really cool relationship now. She is definitely 100% my sibling. We are all so much alike, it is crazy. And I think the idea of taking a DNA test at this point is completely out of the picture, just because it's not needed. It's not necessary. We know that it is our sibling. But remember how I said I didn't question my parents telling me about Child M from the beginning. Now here's where there's problems. Here's where it's problematic on both parts. If we moved to America when I was 3 months old and pretty much my mom would have lost contact with my father and her friends, then how did we know that Child M was around and taken away? Which insinuates that Child M, my sibling, would have had to have been born and been around long enough that situations would have occurred between her and her mother. So how would my family have known that this child was born, there were problems, and she was taken away? How old was the child when they found out? I don't know. But if my family had lost contact with, you know, my mom's friends and my father and stuff like that, how would they have known? Okay, well, they were talking to someone over there. Fine and dandy. If they were talking to someone, they would have known my dad was looking for me. If that is the truth, if my dad really was looking for me, then they would have known that my father was like, okay, where the hell did you guys go? Like, I want to see my daughter. None of it makes sense the way my family over here says it makes sense. Now, my dad's side of the story. He says that 6 months after we left, he was super depressed, went to a party, and made some bad decisions. That's fine and dandy as well, except for the fact that Child M and our birthdays are too close for that to be the truth. So that does not make sense. So there's another thing where her and I had to figure that out together. The first night I was there, her and I and our younger sister, we had like a sleepover, kind of like a girls' night or whatever, but her and I got to sit down and kind of talk about the different stories we were both told, and we together figured it out that the stories we were told don't match up because our birthdays are too close. We were literally only a couple months apart. So the 6-month thing doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So that's another thing to, like, when both sides of your family tell you that they're telling the truth, and you kind of get to a point where everything's settled down, and then another situation comes up where you have to figure that out as well, and then there's lies about that as well. I mean, I can't say there's lies because, again, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but when things are being said that don't make sense, they don't add up, you kind of just have to come to the realization that, look, like I said, when you tell yourself something for so long, it becomes the truth. I mean, look at anybody with body dysmorphia. Look at anybody with anorexia, with any kind of problem. When you tell yourself, I'm too fat, I'm too fat, I'm too fat, you're going to look at yourself that way forever. You could be 100 pounds and still see yourself as a 250-pound person. I mean, that's what happens when you tell yourself the same thing over and over and over again. It becomes the truth. So my mom still does that to this day. My dad, I'm sure, with a lot of things, still does that to his day. And unfortunately, I have to just, you know, I have to come to the conclusion it's okay. Because I'm here and I have relationships with both my parents and I'm happy about that. But this is all kind of coming together for me to say, like, even when you think everything is settled down and like figured out, it's not. Like I tried to tell both of them, I don't know who they used to be. All I do know about humans in general is that we grow up and we learn different things. I mean, hell, look at the candidates for presidency right now. You have two candidates, Hillary and Trump, who both have said one thing in the past, but now they're saying something completely different. Yeah, against pro-choice, for pro-choice, against gay marriage, for gay marriage. You change things about yourself and you kind of grow to understand a better picture and understand that life is not what you like to make it sometimes. So yeah, they've grown up and they've changed, and that's fine. But as for where everything is right now, I mean, everything's good, everything's fine. But it wasn't at first, and that's okay. It's okay that things are not okay in the moment that it's happening, and it's not going to be okay for a while after it. But the truth of the matter is, you have the ultimate decision in if you're going to dwell in it or if you're going to move past it. Because every day there's going to be something that comes up that you're going to be unhappy about. Every day there's going to be a choice you have to make. Am I going to lay in bed, or am I going to get up and take a shower and get on with the day? That's pretty much your choices in life. Am I going to sit here in this, or am I going to figure out a way to get over it, get through it, get around it, something? Because there's always going to be something standing in your way. There's always going to be a new thing coming up in your life that you can view as good and bad. So I know this wasn't as detailed as the last videos, but I figured I'd just put that out there. And we'll even see if I put this up. Who knows? But if you watched it, thank you so much. And also I want to say, I know it's not anything huge, but I got two followers on YouTube, which is super cool to me because at least I'm reaching somebody, and that's all this is about. So thank you to the people who've watched this and heard me out and all the kind words and stuff. So have a good day.